yes. Sex journal.
How did that come about, and how's the reception?
It's all cool. So I'm sitting there, I'm bored. And then I quit that job. I'm sorry, what was the question? I forgot that. I go on and on.
About you, that you were stuck in Gabon. Wow, how was that like?
It actually was underwhelming. It was a non-event.
What?
It was a non-event. It was a non-event. No, really, because nothing happened.
The concept of ubuntu, as it is known and understood in South Africa, do you find it in the rest of Africa?
More than I've ever experienced it here. Yeah. And that's why I gravitate. Actually, I think subconsciously. That's why I'm always out of here. Quick to anger.
When I was younger, yeah.
Okay.
But I've been in so many situations where I could have really flushed my entire life down the drain because of my anger.
I'm a very angry woman. I'm a very angry man. Yo, I'm angry. Almost all the time. I'm never. La madoda are doing us dirty. You know, people will say, oh man, I want to date a Congolese guy or a Nigerian guy. Bayafana. Bayafana.
Popi, unjani?
Ndiyaphila Nkosi njani?
Ndiyaphila. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Schedule is crazy.
Yeah.
But I want to start with something very simple. Kubani Popi.
Popi Sibiya, Siphelele Sibiya. NdingowaseQonce in the Eastern Cape. Yeah, just a normal small town girl. Actually, ndikhulele eBisho, which is maybe 10-minute drive maximum from eQonce. And then but I went to school at eQonce. My friends lived in eQonce and eBisho. So as abantu baseBisho, we like to say sikhulele eQonce. Guys, singabase eQonce because no one really knows eBisho.
But it's the capital.
Yes, it's the so-called capital. Is it the capital?
Yeah, it's the capital of the Eastern Cape. Isn't
but
it?
like it is, ne? Mna ndayigqibela yiyo, but technically, like, is it doing capital things? Are capital meetings being held at Bisho or Kanyemond?
The funny thing is that the premier of the Eastern Cape lives in King.
Akasahlali nakla nae man pai isesebisho man landawo premier's residence isesebisho.
No, the one that I visited was in King, in Catherine Heights.
That's where I stay. Daibona, it's just up the road from my place, or my parents' home. That huge sprawling grounds in there, and it
has the security hut at the front.
Okay.
It's that white house with the security.
Yes, with the black fence, I think.
Yeah, black fence.
So what? So upremier, because growing up, upremier we hlale eBisho man. Yeah, as upremier's residence, kase Caltex garage. Number one mover, but yeah, Kuchiwo, it's the capital city, but I don't know if it does what other capital cities do.
Yeah.
So no one knows about it, whatever.
So Kulele
Qonce, and then after matric, I studied industrial engineering at NMU. Worked as a business analyst in Joburg for a video entertainment company. You can probably guess. Don't guess it on here.
Yeah, I definitely won't.
Yes, but you can guess. There's only one in the whole country, really.
Okay, how does an engineering student become a content creator?
So I left I left business analysis, went to teach English in China. And then when I was in China, I was like, oh, this is boring. I want a world stage. I'm a star. And then I quit that job. And moved into content creation.
It can't be that easy. Like, break it down for us a bit more.
Okay.
So you studied industrial engineering?
Yes.
And you worked for how long?
Okay, so I studied industrial engineering, worked for a year and a half as a business analyst. Wasn't enjoying it. I felt like I was underqualified. I didn't know what I was doing. And my managers were micromanaging me, and everyone else seemed to know what they're doing. They'd been doing it for years, and Yasmin, it just got to me like I'm underperforming, and I just didn't feel good about myself. And it was a very tough working environment. We'd take work home, and then I just started drinking, and I'd be driving home. This Randburg, next thing I'm in Sunning Hill. How did I get here? Like I was like, bruh. Yeah, and then you go. And I was like, hey. So okay, luckily, actually something happened. So the company was restructuring. So they kept calling meetings department by department. So it came time for our department to be called into a meeting to officially tell us that, okay, we have to reapply for our jobs. We already knew, we'd been hearing from other departments. That morning, actually, I got into an accident and my car was written off. And I was like, oh, this is my sign, but I can, because I'd been thinking of jumping ship and going to teach English in China. But I wasn't sure. I'd studied the TEFL, I'd done the TEFL, and I had the certificate, and I'd started applying for jobs, and I'd been getting some jobs, but I was still not signing the contracts and getting them back to the schools. Because I was like, am I sure? Am I a teacher? Do I want to teach English in China? Anyway, that morning, my car got written off, and I was like, oh, a sign.
Ooh.
So I walked into that meeting, and I listened in on what they were saying, but I knew I'm not going to reapply. Because anyway, I didn't think they would hire me again, because I really wasn't a good business analyst. I won't lie. So, leave for China. So I decided, okay, I signed the papers, I go to China.
What year was this?
This is 2018.
Okay.
Get to China September 2018. I am teaching. It's fine. It's easy. Things are going well. I'm not micromanaged. And they look to me as an expert in teaching. I'm like, guys, this is, I just have this flimsy little paper. It means I'm no teacher, But they like, no, you're the teacher. You go for it. I regain my confidence. I heal, dude, from that lack of confidence. And I heal. I become spiritual. I read any book. You can say any book. I've read it. All the books, the monkey, the monk with the Ferrari,
I was about to say
secret, every book, the power of now.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, that was the first one. That was my first read. That's the first read.
Yeah.
Anything you can think, I read it, I consumed it, and those books helped me because they helped me to trust in myself, believe that the universe has my back, believe that there's something in me, something powerful in me, that I create my own destiny just with my thoughts. Thoughts lead to actions, etc. So I'm sitting there in China, I'm bored, I'm teaching these kids ABC, 1, 2, 3, colors. It's easy and the money's good.
Are you a kids person though?
I am, Shem. I am. When the kids are here, I am. But if you ask me, do you like kids? Let me not say like kids, because then I'm going to get into trouble for not liking kids. But do you enjoy kids? I'd probably say no. But when the kids come, I do. I do enjoy them, because then they're here and we have a good time, and kids are good.
Yeah.
Kids are cool. So I'm sitting there, I'm bored. And then I quit that job. I'm sorry, what was the question? I forgot the question. I go on and on. You say, how does you say it could not have been easy to what?
No, I was asking
to quit teaching.
Not that. I was asking, how does an industrial engineering person end up becoming a content creator?
No, and then I told you how, and then you said it could not have been easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I quit. Okay, it's a long story. Should I tell the whole story?
Tell the story.
The story. Okay, guys. Okay, let's go. Okay, so I'm teaching English in China. It's now February. So that year, Chinese New Year happened in February. I just come back
2019
from... This is 20, yes. Okay. Come back from Phuket. They gave me leave to go to Phuket the week before. No one, this is the thing about Chinese people. No one said, hey, why don't you wait for next week? It's Chinese New Year. They let me go. I come back from Phuket. I get a call. Hey, don't come into work tomorrow. Why? It's Chinese New Year. I'm like, so they don't like to communicate things in advance. It's Chinese New Year. Don't come to work for 2 weeks. Yeah. So it's winter in China during February. I'm stuck in the apartment. I'm alone. Everyone else knew that it's Chinese New Year. So they left. They booked holidays. I'm alone in my apartment. It's cold. And I'm sitting there just thinking, and I think, I'm bored. I realize, man, I'm bored up and I'm done. I'm done with this. I draft my resignation letter.
You get bored fast.
Yay! Dude, I get bored so fast that even with the content that I create, and I'm going off a bit here, I can do, if I do something that's not just my normal voiceover reel, if I go in and do something a bit more adventure storytelling, 2 episodes is enough. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm sure the people are bored. No, they're not, you're bored. And I switch, like, I need to learn to. Okay, so I'm typing my resignation letter, send it through. They're like, okay, we need 3 months notice. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. I serve 3 months. Yeah, China, because it's not easy to, the process to get the work permits and stuff takes a bit of time. So that's why. So they're like, okay, we need 3 months to replace you. Cool. I work my 3 months. My 3 months is supposed to end May 2019. My grandmother passes away. I decide to go bury her, to the burial. She was one of my favorite grandmothers, etc. And then I'm like, hey, I don't think I've saved enough. So I'm like to my HR, can I come back? Because I'd already said I'm not coming. Can I come back? They're like, girl, we didn't process a new work permit for you, you know, because we thought you quitting. They're like, hey, it's going to take months. Yeah, you can come back, but it's going to take months. I'm like, okay, cool. Go to the funeral. After the funeral, I'm dilly-dallying, twiddling my thumbs. I do a bit of South Africa. I think Cape Town. I'm like, what more can I do? I take a road trip from South Africa to Ghana. From South Africa to Kenya. Because that had been my plan, that when I'm going to quit my teaching job to go camp in Kenya for like 3 months, because I know that we get up to 90 days visa free. So I thought you get that 90 days up front at the border. But actually you only get 30 days, and then I think you come back to renew and stuff like that. You don't get 90 days up front. Anyway, so that was my plan. So now I'm back in SA. I'm waiting for work permits, Chinese work permits. I'm like, okay, let me go to Kenya. And then I posted on my Instagram. It gets good. It gets some traction from my followers. My followers are very interested in it. You know, they interacting. I'm like, oh, there's something here. And I'd always known that I wanted to be a travel vlogger. I knew that it was going to be something to do with travel, and it was going to gain traction, and I was going to make money. I always knew. I just knew. So I'm like, oh, I was right on the money with this thing. Okay, cool. But there's no money in my bank account right now. I have 10,000 rands. So China calls, hey, come back to work. And something tells me, don't go back. Remember, I'd read all those books, and those books had said, you are powerful. You make your world. You are God. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, don't go back. Something says, don't go back to China, man. But I'm like, hey, I have 10,000 rands in my account, and I don't know how I'm going to make money. I have no idea how I can make money creating content online, especially with the numbers I had at the time. I think it was 600 followers.
Really?
Yes.
You had over 100,000 now, and you started at 600.
I started at 600, and I already thought I was a big thing at 600. I was already quitting my job. Guys, 600, I quit my... Thinking about it. 600, I was like, I'm big enough. I booked my ticket to China. That was 6,000 rands. Now I'm left with 4,000 rands. I go to work, guys, diligently. I have to convince myself, like, okay, Pops, please stay a year, bro. You need the money. Like, come on, work with me. Yeah. Hey, I wake up when I get to China, December 2019. Hey, I work diligently that whole month, I think I only took leave 3 days. that month. Okay, yeah.
Only. In the month.
Okay, then I go to work. January hits. I work diligently again. Hey, I'm there at work every day. Bored as fuck, but hey, what if I push? Chinese New Year rolls around. That year it was 18 Jan, around 18 Jan. They're like, again, I found out on that day. I went to work that day, 18th Jan, and they were like, Pops, there's no work today. And it was empty, ne? I get there at around maybe 7:30. I'm like, guys, I'm at work, okay. It's empty. Where are the kids? They're like, no, there's no work today. Go home. I'm like, yeah, but I'm at China. Hey, guys, they're like, go home. See you in 2 weeks. Like, what's the Cantoni?
Everybody change the new year.
Okay, since it goes by the moon and the seasons, so it changes every year. It's like Easter. Easter isn't on the same day every year. Right. Okay, my friend and I go to South Korea. I don't have money for South Korea. I'm just going for vibes because I've spent Chinese New Year in China and it was dead and actually depressing because everyone leaves. That's the thing about people who live and work in China. I think they don't I don't want to say they don't really like being there, but every chance we got, we used to exit China. Like, yeah, we can work here and whatever. It's cool. China's cool. But I think a lot of us took the job so that we could travel, so that we could have access to the northern hemisphere.
Makes sense, yeah.
So every chance we got, we were out of the country. So my friend and I would go to South Korea. We have a greatish time. Great. It was a good time. It was a good time, but I did not have money, bruh. I should not have been there. I should not have been there. Hey, God damn. I was hungry and cold. Hey, guys. Something there, Papa. We get back to China.
Yeah.
It's lockdown. This is now end. Yeah, end
And
Jan.
it started early there.
Yes. Because it started, they acknowledged it officially around end Jan. But they had known about it around November 2019, according to the news sources. Okay, we get there, it's the end of Jan. It's locked down. No work, no pay. Firstly, I just spent all my money in South Korea. That's number one. Number two, it's no work, no pay. I am alone in my apartment. It's cold, and I'm not happy.
Is that unpaid at least?
Yes, Shem. Okay. They took care of rent.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
They took care of rent. So I'm like, hey guys, you shouldn't be here. Why don't you go and do this travel shit? So I'm sitting there, I'm journaling every day. I'm doing my spiritual shit. I am God. I am this. I am powerful. I am. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. With my 5,000 rands, I fly home to SA, and I just go home. I don't discuss it with my parents. I just sort of rock up. Yeah. I mean, I do call and say I'm coming home, but I don't say what's happening, what's the real tea.
Okay.
Get home. My parents are like, oh, okay, so when are you going? So my parents just think, oh, it's this COVID thing. She's running away from COVID. She'll be back in no time, back at work in no time. And I say, I'm retired now. I'm done working. I'm done working.
And you're like 26 this time.
Oh, I'm like 25. I just turned 25, bruh. I just turned 25 last month, Feb.
You're retiring.
I'm retired now. And then my parents sort of frowned. They weren't happy about it. But my parents aren't the type to, like, shout and scream. So we never spoke about it. And then I just stayed at home for like, I think 2 years, just grinding and building the community. Every day I was on stories. People were getting to know me. I was doing skits. I was doing everything. I did everything. If you scroll right down, I did everything. And then, it gained traction. And that's how it happened. That's the story.
And I read about you that you were stuck in Gabon during a coup. Wow. How was that like?
It actually was underwhelming. It was a non-event.
What?
It was a non-event. It was a non-event.
Would this mean?
No, really, because nothing happened. Like, guys, so I'm there, and then I leave Libreville. So let's say they vote today. Tomorrow morning, I leave Libreville because I'm hoping the borders will be open by tomorrow. So I go to the border town of Gabon, Bitam. The border doesn't open. I'm hosted by a friend. I meet a friend on a bus. She says, come stay with me and my boyfriend. We're chilling there. So it was during that week of nothing when they're still counting the votes. So we're all chilling. We're waiting for the result. They are adamant. They don't want to Ali Bongo again. They are tired of Ali Bongo. They need something new. That's what they're saying. So, and they're saying, Pops, if Ali wins again, because they knew Ali they accused Ali of rigging. So the people of Gabon used to accuse Ali Bongo of rigging the vote. So they're like, Pops, if Ali wins again, man, we're gonna be mad. We're gonna do something. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll be here watching. So then one morning, I'm woken up by I was seeing this guy. Hey, wake up! It's a coup. They've done a coup, whatever. There's a guy on TV, a military guy. He's announcing a coup. And then there was like 2 people on the streets shouting, yay, Gabon is liberated. That's it.
Really?
Yes, and I'm just chilling there. I'm waiting for the borders to be open. Nothing happened where I was in Bitam. But I did see some news reports of Libreville. There was a bit of a stir, but nothing much, because the people had gotten what they wanted. Ali Bongo was out, so there was really nothing to fight over or protest over. So it for the most part, it was a non-event.
But I can only imagine as a woman, being in a strange country as you usually find yourself in.
Yeah.
Like, don't you have a little bit of worry or, fear of the worst that could happen?
No.
Or is it this South African influence that we have of knowing the dangers that exist for women in South Africa?
Yeah, because I don't worry, because anything that happens of a violent nature in those countries, I never think it could be towards women only. So if someone's gonna start a shooting spree, they're gonna shoot everyone. So I don't think, I never think.
And that's comforting.
Yes, because I never feel like they're gonna use rape as a. I've never felt that.
And how's your experience of African men different from your understanding of South African men and the mentality that exists here towards women?
So I find that African men don't try. I find that South African men want to control and conquer the bodies of women. I find that, so the term that people use is toxic masculinity. I find that you guys want to own us and control us. Even in the way that you look at us up and down, you're very objectifying. Whereas I find men outside of the country, outside of South Africa, they revere women, they respect women. And yes, man, like, when a woman walks into a room, like, something changes. You can tell by something that needs to be protected and respected. That's how they... and I told you earlier a story about, I was passing a group of Namibian taxi drivers. And I was like, oh man, here comes the cat calling. I'm ready for it. I passed through and no one batted an eyelid. They did not even stop the conversation for a beat. They just kept going. And so I was like, oh, this is new. And I kept going up the continent upwards, and it was always the same thing. Obviously, there are men who do the most. But for the most part, man, amadoda. Hi, man, they keep to themselves. The way in which they respect you, talk to you. Like, they're chivalrous also. Very chivalrous, but not because I'm light-skinned or I have a big bum or they're trying to be my husband or... Nje, wonke umuntu gets their hand held when you're stepping into a boat. Every woman,
Yeah.
fat or thin or light skin or dark, we all get helped up the boat. It's not something I'm used to in SA.
Where do we miss the mark here in South Africa?
I think.
I remember a friend of mine from Zim during lockdowns in 2020. She was preparing for her hairdresser to come do her hair at her place because of the situations of salons being closed down and whatnot. And I remember she having a conversation about this hairdresser with her brother. And the only concern the brother had on the phone was, is he South African, the hairdresser?
Yeah.
And as soon as she said no, he was okay with a man coming to his little sister's house to do her hair. But if it was a South African man coming to her house to do her hair, I think there would have been more concern.
Is this friend South African?
No, she's Zimbabwean. Her brother is based in the UK. And based on just the stories about South Africa and gender-based violence, the idea of having a South African man come to a woman's house, a woman's home, a woman's space, was very uncomfortable for him. And I'm like, that was one of the first instances where I'm like, what's the difference?
So a lot of people pointed to apartheid, the absence of fathers during apartheid times when, fathers went to work in the mines, left all children, but boy children had no one to look up to. So they say that that's what shaped the South African culture in terms of how men treat women. But I think also it has something to do with money. Because you guys, here you have more opportunities here in South Africa and you tend to make more money than other African countries. And I think that then informs how you structure stuff, how you treat women. Because some of you are ballers. And, the one who has the money gets to make the decisions. The one who has money has power. So I think then that's how South African men then, that's maybe why, one of the reasons why they tend to treat women a certain way. It's because when you guys make money proper. In other African countries, they do make money, of course. There are those who make money, but for the most part, the money is not that good. And also, I think it's just a cultural thing, man. Because even with the crime in other countries, it's almost cultural. They almost know it culturally that you don't take what's not yours. It's not so much about, oh no, we're scared of jail. I don't get that sense of, oh no, I don't wanna go to jail, so I'm not gonna partake in crime. It's almost that we don't do that here. We don't do that here.
I think another thing that makes South Africa the way that it is the fact that, like you say, apartheid and the circulation of money here. We are probably the most sophisticated economy in Africa, and with that comes with a sophistication with the infrastructure that we had, the record keeping that we have, the opportunities that are available to the masses. But then the downside of that is westernized ideologies, westernized values become very entrenched with this South African identity, whatever it might be, because I would say, besides people that grow up in the rurals in South Africa, the people that live in urban centers have a very shallow, diluted appreciation for their Africanness,
Yes.
Like difference, we from the Eastern Cape, Abexhosa Basepai or Basemtata are way more different than Abexhosa that grew up in Johannesburg, like what's important to a Xhosa person that grew up in Johannesburg and what is important to a Xhosa person that okhulele is
different.
Way different, like we are orientated differently. We have this 21st century lifestyle that we have that is kind of a hybrid of African values that are not really seen as being, essential, like we have a huge appreciation for learning English. We have a huge appreciation for speaking English well, being educated in Western customs and all that, and less of an appreciation of the African principles that our grandparents might have been raised on. You know?
I see this a lot in... Okay, so when I first wanted to do the show, the Popi Show, my first ever project was I wanted to be hosted by people from different South African tribes. So I wanted to study the South African tribes. So I asked some Zulu friends, hey, can you host me? And everyone's answer was like, oh, no, I won't be there. You can come in December when I'm there. So it's not as easy in South Africa to find hosts. And that's why I don't do the work that I do here in South Africa, because I don't think it would be successful. Here, going back to what you said about those Western ideologies and Western influence, here it's, I'm not going to say totally, but a lot of it is each man for himself. We're wary of one another. And just not as like, no one, I don't think South Africans, even though I'm a South African, would open their homes as openly as people from outside of South Africa do.
Yeah.
And it's just in the way that they move. Like, I remember my first ever host family on my road trip from South Africa to Ghana was, it was Helen. I met Helena. Helena was working at an Airbnb. And I was just chilling there, talking to her, saying, hey, I'm looking for the sand. I didn't even think she would know anything. Do you know where I might find them? She said, yeah, we live among the sand. My people live among the sand in northern Namibia, Rondo. Oh, yeah, you can go there. My family's there. And she's in Windhoek. She's not going to go to Rundu anytime soon. She was like, oh, yeah, I'll call my mom. I'll tell her you're coming. So that's usually what it is outside of South Africa. In South Africa, when I had asked people from different tribes, hey, can your family host me in the village? I want to get to know the tribe, whatever. They were like, oh, no, you can come in December when I'm there.
Sinalando tina of ubomi basesilaleni, ubomi bamaqaba.
Yes.
You know, like, and then the funny thing that happens is this thing of people come from Eslalin, go to university in Johannesburg, Cape Town, or one of the city centers. They start working and they adopt to discover Eastern philosophies of Zen, yoga, all that tranquil belief systems, you know. But then when you look at those philosophies, they basically the same thing as the values that are instilled in the rurals. It's just it doesn't have a fancy name, it doesn't have a book that you can reference.
Because if you look at Eslalin, at a certain time, kuye kuphunywe phandle kuyodlalwa phansi komthunzi.
Yep.
Kuhlalwe emthunzini. And kungenziwa nto.
Yeah.
That's our meditation time or downtime or whatever you want to go out into nature. What do they call it? Grounding. That's our grounding. Guys, we've been grounding.
You find people with those copper things on their arms because it's something they learned from a book that referenced something that is believed in India. I'm like, what about Le? Yasimtata, I believe in a banyan.
You know?
Yeah.
So we've been doing slow living as a people. We've been doing community as a people. Yonke lento, we have it in us. We've already been doing
governance.
it.
You know how the home is supposed to be structured, how the community is supposed to be structured. You know, we forget that. As soon as we move to the cities, like those are maqaba is. Like, I won't act as if I'm better in that regard because even me, like, I don't like going back home.
Okay,
you know, like,
why is that?
People have this thing of South Africans have this monolith type thing.
Okay.
You know, like we are very fractured. Like as South Africans, as Black South Africans, as we're very fractured.
Yes.
And the differences between a Black person from the rurals and a Black person from the township, they might be from the same tribe, but a guy that grew up in New Brighton and a guy that grew up at Gabon, they won't get along. You know, like they won't get at a macro scale. Like there's just these divisions,
and we tend to look down upon each other. Because when you said Ngwasepai, I laughed. There we go. Because I'm from Eqonce, and I feel like as abantu baseqonce Dikeni, we are more grounded. Yes. Authentic Xhosa, yabo. Grounded. And then about Asepai, they sort of townish, like a modernized, watered down version of ubuXhosa.
Yeah.
And that's where the jokes come in. Oh, man, Basepai are crazy. Yeah, so I agree with you.
Yeah, and ubuntu, the concept of ubuntu as it is known and understood in South Africa, do you find it in the rest of Africa?
More than I've ever experienced it, yeah. Yeah. Wow. And that's why I gravitate, actually, I think subconsciously. That's why I'm always out of here. I don't want to say I don't fit in here, but I'm not. So South Africa is very capitalistic and money driven. And the way I make money, or the way I want to make money, I'm probably not. It's not gonna work here. It needs to be fast. I need to be fast. I need to do more. Nah. And I'm just. It doesn't work for me. So Ubuntu, if you look at my show, if you watch my show, you'll see, but a lot of it is based on just kindness from strangers, bruh. It's not something that I'm able to do for myself. No, I secured this thing by myself because I'm well spoken and I did a presentation and I convinced these people. No, it's very much, hey, I'm looking for elephants. Where can I find elephants? Where can I find? And people are like, oh, I know. Yeah, you can. And then someone says, I'll host you for the night. You can sleep in my place. And then tomorrow I'll take you to this other lady who stays where the elephants are. And then when we meet that lady, she's like, oh no, you can stay in my... So actually, let me tell you a story.
Okay.
Gabon, when I was in Gabon, someone said, elephants roam freely here. I didn't know this. And then I thought, okay, now I have to see them. So I looked for them, didn't find them, went back to Gabon. I said, I want to see these elephants. Give me a different place. Then one guy said, Gamba, Gabon. I said, okay. I was on a bus to Chibanga. So it's Chibanga and then Gamba. I'm on a bus to Chibanga, and everyone sort of clocks that I'm foreign. So one lady's like, oh, come spend the night at my place, because there are no hotels in Chibanga. I don't know where I was going to sleep anyway. I told you I don't do any research, I just go. So I don't know half the time where I am. I don't know what's happening. She says, stay at my place. Okay, cool. She says, tomorrow morning, I'll take you to the bus to Gamba. The next morning, we get to the bus station. There's a lady there from Gamba. And she's like, oh, and then I say, hey, I'm off to Gamba. Can you please host me for a fee? Because I just know, man, but the small towns, they don't have hotels. And if they do, they very bed bugs. There'll be bed bugs. There'll be mice. So I'm like, can you please host me at your place? She says, I'm not going to Gamba, but you can stay at my place. I won't be there. You can stay at my place. Go get a key next door. My colleague keeps my key. Take my key, go into my place. So I find that's why my show is successful, because of kindness, not because of what I have to offer. And so yeah, that's the difference between Ubuntu in South Africa, which we do have Ubuntu, guys. You saw what we did for the white Europeans. Oh, we have Ubuntu, honey. I don't want to hear it. Oh, we got them a whole car.
I don't think we had an option for that one, though.
What do you mean?
I mean, 1652 was not a...
No, I mean these Europeans, these ones who are traveling from London to Cape Town.
Oh,
you saw how we banded together.
Okay. Yeah.
Got them a car.
Yeah.
So we have Ubuntu. I don't want to hear about
people that do not know, explain that situation.
Okay, so I'm not following the journey, but there's a group of 3 European people, mostly whites, and they are driving from London to Cape Town,
Yeah.
and their car breaks down. It literally breaks in half. Their van breaks in half.
The mud.
In the mud, it gets Africa, the roads. So I suppose South Africans are enjoying the journey, which is fine. And then, but they tag a certain car brand, which I will name. Give them a car, give them a new car, to the point, and there's so much pressure and engagement and banding together and calling for it to happen, and it happens. So sinabo ubuntu in South Africa.
Why do you think it happened?
Hell, it do.
If the roles are reversed, if me, you, and some colored dude decided to go to London from now, do you think anyone in the UK would have been campaigning?
No, it do. And I said this too. So when the car brand responded, "Hey, check your DMs. We just gave you a car," I went on my Instagram. So people were. My community was a bit upset because that had never happened for me, which is fine. We'll get to that. But no, and then I went and said, guys, we need to be careful what we invest our eyeballs and attention to, because we do have a voice, guys. We do have numbers, and these brands, as much as they like to pretend they don't see us, they do see us, and they do care about our money. We are the majority here in South Africa. We invest a lot of money in these brands. So, and then I say to them, I'm going to Europe. Season 4 of the Popi Show is based in Europe. It happens in Europe. We will see how many Europeans will be campaigning for me. Hey, Airbnb, please host this girl. Hey, please. We'll see. They're not going to do that. They're not even going to watch the show. They're not going to care about the show. They're not going to talk about the show. And this is how we receive outsiders. Foreign white Europeans.
It's that mentality. I always say this. I have a friend that wrote his master's thesis arguing, he did literature at UCT, so his master's thesis was arguing that Shakespearean literature was not written for the time it was written, and it was written for the 21st century. And I was so against that concept, saying what we fail to understand as Africans is that race is an invention. It's an invention that came about because there was a need to be met. And the need was to rally poor European people under our cause of saying, by default, because of the color of your skin,
you're better than
you're better than everyone else. You're still poor,
but at least
you're not black. You're this thing, and ever since then, we as Abantu Abamnyama have always had this inferiority complex. Ukuthi, when I say Popi is not deserving for this campaign. I bonze palela noni email before, like it's entertaining, but then Popi is not deserving of this campaign. Man, that for me is very telling, but we live in a world where voicing that reality makes you combative.
Yes, and I'm going to come off as jealous. So I also have to be very careful. For instance, I would like to, say, I'm sure the content is interesting. I don't watch the content. But I'm sure, I just want to let people know that I'm not saying you're enjoying it because you have an inferiority complex. I'm sure it's interesting, too. I'm sure those guys have interesting stories to tell, etc. And I think what I learned from that is that for me, I have to ask for people to tag brands. No, but they do, Sham, but not at that scale. So if I want it to happen for me, having been doing for years what these people are doing, I will have to ask in the post, I will have to say, guys, can you please tag brands? And I will have to tell them the exact brand or brands to tag for it to happen. And I will probably have to say it more than once. And I think something else that came up, I'm not on Twitter, but I think it trended just a little bit. So people were outraged a little bit on Twitter on my behalf. And someone said, one of the comments was, oh no, but she doesn't use a car. I'm a black South African, honey. You know the history of this country. Who gets to have a car and who doesn't? And who gets to quit their job to travel the world with a car, already having a car and all those assets. And who doesn't, you know? So let's not pretend like I don't come from a previously disadvantaged background. And, oh no, if she wanted a car, then brands first need to see her in her own car, and then they'll know that she's serious about cars, and then they'll give her a car. A black South African? Really?
Yeah.
Second generation university? Like, my parents were the first to study, and our generation is the second. So we don't come from that. We don't come from what those people probably come from. And here goes the peanut gallery. They don't come from wealth either. They're white. They are white, and by that virtue alone, they are seen more. Whatever they do, whatever
social credit that we do not have.
Exactly, that they did not even work for.
I remember as a kid, I thought there was a rule where you had to be white to be a supervisor at the grocery store. Like, I honestly thought that was a thing. I was like,
and you were right.
You know, I was like, why?
Even though it's not written down.
Hey, I'm like, what? And as a kid, I had a side hustle in primary school all the way until matric, where my mom bought me a computer very young, which is why I'm in tech. So thanks, Mom. And I used to type CVs for people. So I would type it out and then print it out for like $10. And I would look at people's CVs that they experienced. I'm like, they did a course at this FET college. They did this thing and this thing and this thing. And then the jobs that they have, like cashier, retail, and I'm like, I know for a fact that the supervisors this lady has had at all these places has none of these qualifications.
He's a nephew. That's his qualification. He's a nephew and he's on speed dial.
I was in the Eastern Cape just last week. I came back yesterday and I was stranded in this town because there was a storm. So there was no power for almost 3 days. On the second day, like, I need to work. I work remotely. On the second day, I go to this cafe that has a generator. And as I walk in, there's this friendly guy that, like, approaches me. You can see I don't live there. He approaches me. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. Like, does this place have Wi-Fi? And he's like, it does, but then there's issues with the pump at the garage, so they can't get petrol for the generator, whatever, but they're sorting it out. Cool. As I'm standing there, I'm like, okay, cool, let me order some coffee while they sort this situation out. I order the coffee, and as I get the coffee and I sit down outside, a car pulls up. This black couple walks in. The owner of the establishment is sitting at the corner there. This black couple walks in. They do whatever inside. It's whatever. As soon as this couple, older white couple, pulls up, the owner gets up. As these people are still parking their car, the owner gets up because you know? So now this couple walks in. This couple walks in. They don't even look or glance my way. Subconsciously, they know, understand. Yeah. You know? Subconsciously, they understand. This guy does not own. He's not relevant. He's, you know. The owner walks to them like, can we help you? Yeah, the roads are flooded. We're looking for a place to stay for the night. No. They talk amongst themselves. I'm standing there just drinking my coffee. Within that 5-minute interaction, none of these people looked my way. The guy that was very helpful and whatnot, he was interacting with me in between, but the owner and these two people that were like and we standing like 2-3 feet away from each other. It's only the next day when some normalcy was established in the town where there was some power on and off. So I can only work at this cafe because they have Wi-Fi and their pump is working and the generator is working. So cool. So I'm there, and the couple that had arrived the day before are there for breakfast, and they're about to get on the road to wherever they're going. And the same people that couldn't look my way, now that I'm sitting there with my MacBook, have my, earpods, like then I'm approached on some, so where you from?
What do you do?
Yeah, dude, I used to get so annoyed with that when I first moved to Cape Town.
I'm so sensitive. And I don't like that I just use the word sensitive. How is that sensitive? Why would I call myself sensitive?
Yeah, you are feeling. You are feeling it. you are feeling the reality of your existence.
You are Anna.
In Cape Town,
Abasiboni itu.
I lived in the northern suburbs when I first arrived there, in a place called Tiger Valley. The complex that I lived in was...
Biboni Tiger Valley is fancy, ne?
Oh, yeah. So the complex I lived in was walking distance away from the Woolies and this other complex next door. So I used to walk there a lot. Anyone that knows me knows I don't care about fashion. I don't care about clothing. I don't care about looking the part. Couldn't care less. So I would take walks to this place, and each time I would be walking, I noticed, this is the first few weeks that I moved to Cape Town. Now, this is 2017 December. I'm walking from my place to this complex to buy groceries and stuff. And I noticed that, hey man, every time I'm walking, the only people that I'm seeing here are white people. Like the only black people that I see taking walks, they look like they're on their way to work
or from work.
Yeah, that type of situation. To a point where when I see white people and they see me, I can see a calculation is happening in their head.
But is he working here?
Is he a threat? Should I be, am I safe? Or is he looking for a job?
Yes.
Type thing,
Yeah.
So I got to a point where automatically when I saw a white person approaching me in that area, I would have to take out my phone just to be like, I'm one of you. I'm middle class. Don't worry. I'm not going to rob you.
That is so exhausting, dude. That is so exhausting, like living your life like that.
And it's a South African
having
thing.
To prove
it's a South African thing. I remember a friend of mine was visiting here from the UK. And he's a middle-aged white guy. And even he, a Londoner, was like, why are people so cold in this town? Like, I remember we were having dinner with a group of friends and he was talking about the reactions people were having with him greeting on the street in Cape Town. Like, he just would greet
white
people.
Guy?
White guy. Like, he would just greet people walking by close to... We were booked by this hotel by the beach close to the office. And we were at dinner... The second last day before they left, we were at dinner and he's like, why are people so freaked out when I greet them? Like, this is Cape Town, my guy. Like... Why Capetonians call it cliquiness, like you have to be from a certain family, you have to have gone to the certain schools and whatnot. I'm like, now, in a situation where you are describing that as being cliquey, who affords the neighborhoods and the schools that the cliquiness comes from? So you are basically saying if 80% of all the best companies, all the best schools, all the best neighborhoods accommodate a population of people that make up less than 10% of the country, what is that cliquiness for us who are the majority?
No, I totally get you. And white folks, I mean, I think also Americans, I think it's South Africans and Americans, because Black Americans complain about this all the time as well.
Yeah.
How they sometimes feel like home is not home because they are a minority. They don't feel at home in their own home. And I noticed I was in Zanzibar recently and there was a bunch of white folks. It's always white folks, always on holiday. It's always them who get to be the tourists and the black people get to work and serve them. And I noticed that they don't greet when they walk into the breakfast area. So breakfast was served on a terrace. It was a fancy, expensive hotel. And so I'm the only black person there who is not working there. And they don't greet. They just walk in and sit down. And so, white culture, they tend to not see... Well, white people, they tend to not see us. And they totally ignore us and... Ingatasiko even in the room, it's hurtful and it's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
So this one guy who I suppose is trying to be better than everyone else greeted me before I greeted him. I got there, he was there, but he greeted me first because I told myself I'm not going to greet white people. I'm done. I haven't greeted white people in years because they've been like this, right? So I don't interact with white people. I don't greet them. I don't talk to them. I don't do anything. So I told myself that, okay, I'm not going to greet.
In South Africa or just in
worldwide,
Africa?
I do not interact with white people. So if they start a conversation, I do, and I'm warm and I'm nice, but I never start anything with them because I feel like they never start anything with me, and why should I start? So I walk into the breakfast parlor that day, white guy's there, he greets me first, so then I'm warm. I'm like, oh, hey, we get to chatting. He goes downstairs to fetch his friend, to wake up his friend, because breakfast ends at 10. It's around 9:30 now. Hey, I'm going to go down. I'm going to wake up my friend. The friend comes up first, so the guy stays behind for whatever reason. The friend comes up, doesn't greet me. Just walks in, sits down, ignores me. I'm not there to him. His friend comes back up. Oh, by the way, this is Pops. Now he's greeting me. I'm like, this is fucking embarrassing, bruh. The very woman you didn't see just 2 seconds ago. Now your friend is forcing you to see her. Oh, by the way, this is Pops. She's from South Africa. We were just talking about, you know?
But this goes back to that thing where I say, as South Africans, we have this hybrid thing of where we are Westerners and Africans at the same time, but we are more Western than anything, you know? So I do get to a point where I'm like, I'll cut you some slack. As long as your attitude is clean, I'll cut you some. You don't need to greet me, but at least have an energy that says you have acknowledged as a human being
is in the room with you.
As a black man, I've only dated black women, and the experiences that past partners have told me about are infuriating, especially women that are in engineering or those industries in South Africa where it's mostly going to be probably Afrikaans guys that, you know, there is a insensitivity towards black women in corporate. You know, like you are an object. You are not heard or seen until another white man or another man introduces you or makes you seen. You know, I had an ex that described a situation that just made my blood boil, where she was in the mining industry, and she was at this conference networking thing, and she was one of the few black women, and I mean maybe 2 or 3 there out of 100 people. And this Afrikaans, this is in Paarl.
Okay.
This Afrikaans, you can already this is in Paarl. This Afrikaans dude, imagine this situation where an Afrikaans man is wants to know who you are and what you do, but they didn't ask you.
They asked
sitting here.
Oh, so what does she do? Who is she?
Yeah.
Hey.
And not even pointing. What does she? You know?
Oh,
who's this person?
Guys, God, she's in the room with us.
Yeah,
meaning we big shot in
at
a
this
qala.
table.
She's at the table. Yena qala, I big shot in a qala. Banjalo.
Like I for you,
yeah.
like that just made my blood boil. I'm like, what is this fiction that makes you think you're so much better?
Exactly.
You know, and Trevor Noah speaks about this so much, even in his book Born a Crime, that the thing that people do not appreciate about apartheid is that it gave certain people in this country a narrative that says you do not need to do any growth. You do not need to better yourself. You are okay just as you are.
You are born qualified.
And the problem with that is that you then do not see the onus of enriching yourself. You know, like just enriching your life with experiences. Imagine all your friends look the same. Everyone that you see as being important looks like you and the people in your family. If that's the case, when I talk about apartheid and talk about the uncles and the family members that were shot, they were probably shot by someone that's related to you.
Yes.
Someone that you see as being worthy of love and respect because they're your uncle, your father. Your father, your uncle, your grandparents, they were something else to other people. They were the evils they hoped would never visit you. You know, the people that shot kids at Sharpeville and the Soweto uprisings went home, kissed their kids goodnight, and hoped the evils of the world would never visit them. And yet they were that same evil to other people's children.
Exactly.
Explain me how that happens. Explain to me. So this thing of saying any acknowledgement of the past is combatant. Like it's, why are you being so aggressive?
You said in one of the episodes that you don't like that when we address our dissatisfaction, we are seen as angry people, you know? And that happens to me a lot. I address a lot of this on my Instagram stories, and white people will be there talking about, well, you guys conquered the koi and the san, that's why you're here. So it's never, they never allow us to just air out our things quietly. While they can't just sit and listen. They always have to say, well, you're not perfect either. One said, hey, you're causing what? I think he said, you're calling for a white genocide. I didn't choose to be white. I wasn't even calling for any genocide. I did not even use any violent language. I was just saying that this is how we are treated in this country as black people, a majority on our land, our home, etc. And white people were, I wouldn't say a majority of them, but there were a few who were up in arms. Oh my! I posted a story in isiXhosa saying white people know exactly who they are going to vote for, whereas while our vote as black people is scattered. But I said one part was in isiXhosa. I think I said white people know exactly who they're going to vote for. City Ababa scattered. I am disappointed. I did not understand what you said. I said, ma'am, sit down. I can't repeat. The things I wrote there, I can't repeat here.
There is this guy that I love on TikTok. He is based in eThekwini. White guy. Speaks Zulu very fluently. There is a comment in one of his videos where he's talking about the elections in Zulu. He did not miss a beat with even one English word. And someone in the comments was like, yo, I feel so left out of this conversation. And he responded, do better. There are 11 languages in this country.
Thank you.
There are 11 languages in this country. I'm like, I cannot feel sorry for you if I won't even.
Your people have been here for generations benefiting.
Bro, like I even get uncomfortable with the reality that speaking an African language as a white South African is an accomplishment of some sort.
Dude, the claps, the applause in the comments.
This one girl, when I lived in Cape Town, white girl, said it's easier for us. It's easier for us black people when it comes to English because
this is an English-speaking school. Your parents brought you here to learn English.
The problem with addressing these things in South Africa is we have to go back to 1652. We have to go back there and recognize who was coming here. It was not Boy Scouts coming here. It was people that wanted to get rich. You know, they wanted to get rich and they already did not care about humans in general. You know, think of 17th century England or 17th century Germany, Netherlands, wherever. Europeans have been killing each other since the ice melted from the Ice Age.
Yes, sir.
That's the environment that nurtured,
they were living in,
that nurtured the ideologies of Europe. You know, so you're taking peoples whose ancestors come from an ice age, where the first thought you have to have during an ice age in white snow is, what do I have to kill to survive today? That's the origin of the European in Europe. What do I have to kill to survive? Because if you are in an ice age, it's always snowing. You need to be warm. You need to kill something just to be warm.
Just to be warm.
The African, on the other hand, just wakes up and there's a mango tree.
The sun is warming the skin. So we're walking around, we're wearing what needs to be worn, not too much. There's a mango, let's have breakfast. you know, we have rain, we have sun.
There's an abundance of
Yes, of
everything. Let's share.
everything.
Ubuntu is nurtured in that environment.
Yeah.
And then you have people coming from Europe
And weren't they escaping their own woes
yeah,
there?
yeah.
They were in trouble there already,
the-
and they needed something.
The people that populated Australia, Australia was a prison colony. You know, like England was sending people that were convicted. Either you are going to die or you move to Australia. People took Australia.
Okay.
The US, the people that were moving to the US in the 13 colonies in the beginning were people that wanted religious freedoms from the Protestants of England. Every white population in most countries where they have a significant number, they were escaping something. You know, they were escaping something, and they didn't have the best of intentions of where they were going to. You know, like they wanted to conquer. You know, the US had so many laws during its infancy where if you just arrived somewhere, you owned it. They didn't care who lived there. They didn't care who lived. If you just arrived there, you owned it.
That's crazy.
They had laws when they did the Louisiana Purchase. People do not know that the US was actually built through so many different ways. It was war, it was buying, it was this, it was that. But there was a point when they had bought the state of Louisiana from France. And they had a law that said for each boy child that you had, you get like 50 acres. So people were just having kids. Like they were just populating. They didn't care who was there, but just settle it.
Yeah.
Take control of it. We'll figure everything else later. Now, the problem is generations later, the descendants of those people don't want to reconcile with the reality of how they got there.
Yes,
and that's the problem.
That's
the problem. Because now
I wasn't born, but you're still benefiting from things that were done before you were born. And even if your family is not rich and wasn't one of the families who got the 50 acres, but the fact that you look like those people tend to favor you when it comes to job opportunities, business, because you look like them. So whether you had 50 acres or not, but you look like the people who have 50 acres.
Yeah.
Therefore, you benefit.
You cannot see that privilege if you've been living in it your entire life. Every history book you've read has people that has names that are similar to family
yours.
members that you have.
And those people are conquering and they are winning.
Yeah.
So that's all you know your people for. We are winners.
A few years ago, these Zimbabweans that were born in when Zimbabwe was still Rhodesia, and I think they went to Antarctica and they planted the old Zimbabwean flag. And they were so proud of what that flag represents and all that. I'm like, do you know who Cecil Rhodes is?
Dude.
Do you
to
know
us.
To us. You know, yeah, you have pride for your Cecil Rhodes. It's fine. You can be proud of him. But let's not discount the horrors he did for you to be so proud of him.
Exactly.
And then there's all these controversies when we decide to rename places. I'm like, guys,
get over it.
You really have to.
And Yazindoni, you should ask yourself actually, why was it ever not Winnie Madikizela Mandela Drive in the beginning? So people are upset that you're changing it instead of asking, oh, why was it not always this? Why wasn't Port Elizabeth always Gqeberha?
Yeah.
That's a good thing. When I heard that word, it's not Xhosa, isn't it one of the San or Khoi languages?
Gqeberha sounds closer to me. I'm not sure.
Gqeberha. I think I heard Bana. It's part of the.
What I've read was it was the name of a chief or some sort.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, it was.
But I was very happy. Funekile, guys, this is a land of a people who speak with clicks. Therefore, the names of our streets, our cities should reflect that.
Yep. To the point where we are not reflected in our own countries. How many people actually know Nelson Mandela's voice speaking his Xhosa?
You Zandam.
You know?
Zandam.
There's this picture behind you. Like, I'm thinking now, I'm like, what you were saying. Because I'm a history buff, I do have some videos that I've seen of him speaking his Xhosa,
Okay.
but that's the extent to which we are marginalized in our own country, that this great man from a great family, from a great tribe, you do not know him speaking his own language.
You said you were going to ask me a question about how is Xhosa received.
Yeah. How is, because that's something that's always intriguing because I know other content creators that are so affected by that inferiority complex that they don't want to speak vernac too much on their content. I'm like, why? Because part of the reason I wanted you on the podcast and every other person that I've had on the podcast and every person that I'm going to have on the podcast is I can guarantee you, Popi, there is someone watching this podcast now or listening to this podcast now that didn't know that it's possible to be a black girl traveling the world the way that you do. They've never seen it. It's never been represented. Yet alone speaking is Xhosa.
I get you.
You know?
So is Xhosa, I think Mnandia's Tet is Xhosa. That's just, so my parents grew up, okay, so abazali bam, bathetha isiXhosa with each other.
Yeah.
Bathetha isiXhosa nathi. And then English into esiyithethe esikolweni, but when you come home uthetha isiXhosa. So mna ndingumntu othetha isiXhosa, I'm not even trying to put it on for relevance and cultural black, I'm black. No, ndithetha isiXhosa. And so naturally, I ndivele ndithetha isiXhosa ke kuna I mean, in my humor I suppose mostly isiXhosa, whatever. So my content ndandithetha le nto ndiqhela uyithetha kakade yabo. And then unfortunately, I realized that isiXhosa will cap me in terms of numbers and reach.
Okay.
And that's when you see now the subtitles start to pop up.
Yeah.
Which was it was a very sad day for me, the day I put subtitles in my content, because I'm not isiXhosa ndifuna usithetha nabaXhosa and people who get it, and I wish it was enough to communicate to the people who get it. But it seems it's not enough. It seems that if you're gonna make it out here, you A, gonna have to mix it, but B, when you do speak isiXhosa, you're gonna have to subtitle it. So it is well received by abantu abathetha isiXhosa. But abantu who don't speak isiXhosa are very much in my ear about, we don't understand. No. And the reason I put subtitles was for other black people who don't understand it. So not just South African black people, but all over the world. Definitely. It was for them. It's not for white people. Don't get it twisted. It's not for white people who don't get it, whatever. So yeah, I just started feeling like, what if I'm not gonna reach the heights that I want to reach with this class? And it's very sad to speak a language that is not considered business language, that is not considered a language that makes money. If you look at Xhosa singers, great music, but if you look at the numbers on Spotify, it doesn't go over 100,000 listens a month.
Unless you are Bongeziwe Mabandla.
Yes, but for the most part, you kind of know if it was a Xhosa, you know, it might not. Let me not say it doesn't. It might not go as
definitely
as the English singers, the English speaking people who sing in English. So to answer your question, well received, especially by abaXhosa and people who understand Xhosa and people who are interested in learning Xhosa. So you get your Sutus who can kind of pick up a thing or two. They're like, Pops, we love it. You know, when she speaks Xhosa, it's about to get lit. They don't even get it.
What about the other languages that are Nguni related in African countries? Do they at least understand something here and there?
No.
No.
Funny enough, they don't. But Mnandiasiv is Swahili.
Because
I can pick up Swahili.
Because when I hear Swahili, when they say amanzi, they're not saying amanzi, but it sounds similar to amanzi. Like, okay, I caught
like
that.
mvula, they say mvula. Mlango, they'll sell things like mlango for mnyango.
Isduku zona.
Banazi isduko.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
You don't know?
Not that I know of.
They should.
Yes, but maybe they don't call it Indians are gone basis too. Okay. But something I find is that's why any language speaker, but let me make an example of Swahili speakers. They want me to learn Swahili, right? So they'll be like, Popi, this is a la la la, this is a la la, this is a la la, this is a la la. Ne? I'm like, oh, it sounds similar to my language. It's Xhosa. They switch off. I'm like, what are you people on? What are you on? Because I thought we were supposed to be exchanging and appreciating the similarity. Hi, Sana, they only want me to learn Swahili.
Julius wants us to learn Swahili. Julius is a big proponent of having a unified African language, and Swahili would be the best candidate because it's spoken in so many countries, you know, and it's basically the root language of so many other, like the fact that there's shared words.
Arabic is in the
really.
Yes, there's some Arabic words in Swahili. I can't even name one, but like in those like Lala Salama, which means good night. Salam alaikum, those things.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know about that though. What are we, when we have English, what are we gonna do with Swahili? Like, can you explain it to me? I'm not trying to say it's a bad idea.
The thing for me that I get behind that idea is there is a book behind. Okay, I think it's upstairs. There is a book by Thiong'o called Decolonizing the Mind. And basically in that book, he outlines how when he was a student in Kenya, the formative years of his education in primary school, going to high school, he was taught in, I forget, Kirungi or something like that. It's a Kenyan language. That was the medium.
Not Kikuyu.
I think I can't pronounce it.
Okay.
And at some point, the British decided every the medium of communication in Kenya would be English. So they had mandates where if a child was caught speaking their native language, they would be caned. But the way they would do it is they would give, there is a plaque that you wore around your neck that says, I am stupid. And that plaque would be given to, so if I spoke Xhosa and you had the plaque, if you heard me speak Xhosa, you'd give it to me. And then when I heard someone else speak Xhosa, I'll give it to that person. At the end of the day, at the end of the school day, whoever had the plaque would name who gave it to them. That person would name who gave it to them. And so everyone during that day would be caned for speaking their native language.
And can you see the psychology of it?
They thought about this.
They thought things through. Those people.
So... But the entire thing is it's very intimate to disrupt the language a person thinks and dreams in. Like I get so uncomfortable with the when I catch myself thinking intimate things and I'm like, English. You know? And there are so many studies that show that the language you use the most actually has a huge influence in how you see the world. It has a huge influence in how you view the world. You know, there are certain languages, because of the way it's structured, people there have a different way of understanding time, have a different way of understanding tense, you know, the future, the present, and, you know, like, is there a word that can be described as a pronoun?
Not that I know of. Yeah.
You know, like this thing of he, him, she, no, that is not our thing. We never had that thing. We never had that thing. Umntu. You know, umntu ngumntu ngabantu. You know, like, and so the attempt to bring African languages into the fold.
Okay, so it's more of a unity and pride thing more than it is an actual understanding.
Definitely.
Okay, because I actually don't want people to think because I said, why should we learn Swahili if we already have English? So I thought they were saying we need a language that we can all understand. And I feel like we already do. I think English already has that traction in the sense that a lot of us understand it. But now I get where Swahili would come into the psychology of things and just it feeling like our language, which is very important for how we see ourselves is then how we conduct ourselves. And if we see ourselves as kings, we conduct ourselves as kings. So now I get the Swahili thing. I thought it was literally, guys, we need one language that we can all understand.
Yeah.
But now I get you now. I get you.
I read an article that was written about you where you were quoted as saying you wish South Africans would experience other Africans in the way that you've experienced other Africans, because for the most part, most South Africans experience other Africans as migrants, as immigrants that are coming here to do the jobs that South Africans don't want to do. They are not well paid, they are mistreated. And so we see them in the way that they arrive here, whereas where they come from, there is dignity in their identities. Because how many of us know a person from Zim that's working at a petrol garage with 2 degrees? You know? So there is a value in your culture, your language, the essence of who you are being something that is revered.
Definitely.
There is a value in someone listening to this podcast right now. I'm like, wow, but it is close. Oh wow, look, this is possible for me.
Yes, and so long of
representation is, oh man,
it is so important, bruh.
Whenever I see the blunders that some of these brands have, where they have an ad, I'm like, this ad would have not gone to production if there was a black woman in the boardroom, to voice a concern. When you do not have enough representation at the decision table, you're going to make very stupid decisions because you're having a false feedback loop. And then you have the EFF
on your doorstep. The very next day. Guys, the EFF should sit in on every meeting. Every company should have a representative of EFF just to make sure guys are moving right. But yeah, Klando, going back to representation, so I'd always known, but I want to do something in travel. I want to make money from travel, But the women I was watching at the time, the women who were inspiring me at the time were 2 Dutch white presenting women. Long hair, sort of the thin, straight bodies. So that's what I was looking to. And I was like, I'd like to do what they're doing. They were just backpacking all over the world, living carefree. And then I got back to South Africa and I saw Toby Rose, black woman. Bold. I think she was bold at the time. And that's when it clicked. So Toby was getting paid partnerships and she was traveling all the time. And I said, I can do this. Oh my gosh. Then I started to really believe, not only can I do it, but I will. Because nangu Toby ayenza, And there was also Dineo zonke. Nangu not Dineo. Oh my gosh. Okay. For sure. Yeah, so representation really does matter. When you see, you can understand that I can do something, but when you see it done by someone who looks like you, then you really start to believe, but for sure, and that's why I was angry with the car thing, because it was like, it just felt like, guys, send a message, but Europeans can come in here and they're gonna get a car. In fact, they should start doing these African road trips by car with old cars. Just bring any car. Once you get here, Africa's gonna provide a car. Africa's not providing cars to Africans. So for me, it felt like it felt tone deaf. I felt it was tone deaf, Lando, guys. I know that people enjoy the content, and that's what matters nowadays. It's money, it's gonna produce sales, it's clout, I get it. But unfortunately, I just felt like it was tone deaf. It didn't send the, I know that people called for it, tagged the brand, but it didn't send the right message because we don't see that brand coming through outside of South Africa for either travel creators. So if you go on the brand's page, it's mostly white shot, white cycling shot competitions, whatever. But if you scroll down, you will see that they have sponsored black women. But those women were doing road trips in South Africa. You know, so they haven't done it out. Well, I haven't seen it, maybe. And that's why I'm not mentioning the brand, so don't sue me, whatever. But the brand, like, I didn't see where the brand was doing what the white European, where the brand sponsored a black African in the space that the white Europeans were playing in.
Yeah.
So it's in the African road trip space, not just South African roads.
Look, I'm sure you've noticed that it is cheaper sometimes to fly to an African country with a connecting flight to Dubai.
Yes,
than to fly there
direct.
directly. Why is that? You know, like, I'm okay with an answer that makes sense, but I'm gonna ask the question: why is that?
I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know how these things work. But someone did mention. Wait, I don't know. Do you know? Do you have the answer? Let me give you an example.
Okay.
To fly from Lubumbashi DRC to Goma DRC, 10,000 rands one way. Domestic flight. What's happening? Can someone explain to me? Like, kutheni kuduru flyer e DRC?
Yeah.
Domestic flights are expensive. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
They don't have roads, proper roads. In terms of infrastructure and in terms of safety that connect the different cities. This is the country with the most mineral resources in the world. I don't know. And I suppose I could do the research and I could get the answers. But you know, let me know.
I'm going to try to answer this in like a very macro way. Like this policy of the EFF has touted about opening the border, nationalizing things, and this and this and this and that, and then the pushback to that is, we're going to end up like Venezuela, we're going to end up like Zimbabwe, we're going to end up like X amount of places that have tried socialism around the world. Not that I'm a socialist, but just stating that. Do you notice they never mention why those places failed?
Yes.
You know? They
never. They just say it failed.
Yeah, they say bad policies are going to lead to...
They never say why it failed. And we all know who plays a role in the failure.
Me, the way I view the world is the way I view the playground. Kubani chomi zako is a very important question. Who are your friends is a very important question.
Gotcha.
When that is the question that comes to mind whenever you see something as a headline on the television, and like, who are these people's friends?
Gotcha.
Answers the question of why they are in that situation.
Oh, I gotcha.
You know? So if the DRC, and by any economic research, whatever, the DRC is supposed to be the richest country in the world.
But they have zero friends.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants what they have.
Because their friends their friends are their colonial masters' friends. You know? So the biggest landowners, the biggest whatever things in the DRC will probably be a Belgian company.
Yes.
You know? The richest person in Belgium probably is rich because they own a company that owns resources in the DRC.
True.
How does that happen? That part is the disconnect where people do not go in too deep with that.
Okay.
The Belgian royal family is one of the wealthiest royal families in the world. And the DRC, the Congo was the personal property of the Belgian king at some point. Imagine.
He called it my little African cake.
Meanwhile,
African cake.
Meanwhile, when people did not meet their rubber quotations for the day, they would cut off someone's hand. There's a famous picture, and I'm gonna include it as artwork for this section. There's a famous picture of a father looking at the hands of his children, like tiny little hands, probably the hands of a 5 or 6 year old, sitting on the stoop, and he's looking at them like this because his children did not meet the quota for that day. They cut off children's hands.
And the next day, did the kids have to go back to work? Kanye, that's
They
you
probably
fired.
They probably died.
Oh, it was a torturous way to kill.
You know, like, we do not want to look back to the past because you then have to confront the reality of your ancestors. You would have to confront that, okay, we are wealthy, but why are you wealthy? What did your grandparents and your great-grandparents do to get you that wealth? If you have to sit with that, like just weave kakuhle, what would that do to you? So it's best not to think about it. It's best to ask us to move forward and not look back.
But I think, so what's your... Okay, if I came into power and I said I want to redistribute wealth, how would you advise me to go about it?
Man.
And can you please mention the discomfort that everyone would feel? Would everyone feel some discomfort?
Definitely.
Please mention it so that people,
Definitely.
because I think sometimes when you communicate to people exactly the discomfort and how long it's going to take, they are better able to take it. Because there are some black South Africans who would not like expropriation without compensation.
Definitely.
They are scared of the repercussions.
Definitely.
And they don't even know the repercussions, but they know that there will be repercussions. So if you could tell us maybe some of the possible repercussions, how long it would potentially take, then maybe we can also be willing to consider it at least as an option, maybe one day.
I look at history as an example. I look at Burkina Faso with Thomas Sankara and how things kind of worked there for a few years until the West was like, ooh, this is dangerous.
It's gonna work out too well.
I mean, this guy in his 30s, I think he was the youngest head of state when he took power in Burkina Faso. He took power, he expelled the former colonial power, which was France. He expelled every white person in the country, whether they were an ally or what. He just said, we need to do this on our own.
So what would be of our South African white people who identify as African, and this is home? Could you expel, like, what was the difference between the Burkina Faso white people, the ones in Burkina Faso, and the ones in South Africa?
The ones in Burkina Faso were there as administrators.
Okay.
They
weren't generational.
They were not invested in South Africa. It was a mission. They understood the deal. Why South Africans are Africans, within the South African experience, they are Africans. There is a family that is South African that inherited a title in Scotland because they are related to a earl that lived in Scotland. He died without any children or anything like that, and the closest living relative was this family that's from Jan. I think they're from somewhere in Gauteng, but they're South Africans, and they inherited like land and a title in Scotland. And when they were interviewed, they were like, yeah, it's cool, whatever, but I am an African. I trace my lineage as an Afrikaner through the people that came here, they established, no. Okay, cool, I accept your Africanness. But then for me to accept your Africanness, you have to accept that your ancestors were not Africans. Your ancestors were here to exploit. You are the descendants of them. If we can get to that point, Ukuti, you're as well-meaning as you might be now. Your ancestors did not have the same sentiment when they arrived.
Did they denounce the inheritance?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Number one. Number two, if anything happens,
they can always go back.
Will they go back or will they stay with us,
no,
the black
unlikely.
Africans, and fight?
Very
because this is our only home. They have multiple homes.
Yeah. The fact that when I was in high school, I'll get back to your question, but when I was in high school, I had a maths teacher that from grade 8 until matric, he always told us about his son in the UK, and all that. And for years, I assumed this son is probably like some specialist, because this was my maths teacher. So I'm betting his son is smart as hell. All to find out when I was in my senior year in high school that his son was actually a bartender in the UK. I'm like, bro, I know people that do entire qualifications to get enough points to immigrate to the first world, to immigrate to Canada, to go to the UK or whatever. But a white South African can just pick up, gone. The fact that Elon Musk is seen as being more American than South African says a lot.
Yes.
Says a lot, bro.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, he's African American, really? Really? Like, they say it as a joke, but underneath is like, yeah, he's African. He's more American than African, but he's African American. It makes sense. So the way we see ourselves as South Africans is fractured. And for us to get to a point where we could emulate Burkina Faso and what Thomas Sankara was doing, we first have to, unite. Those that want to be here, stay. If you don't want to be, I'll pay for your flight to Futsek. I don't care. But don't tell us, no. Participate. Invest in us. Invest in the people.
Yeah.
See us as you would see your own people.
Yes.
First, let's get there.
Yes.
See us as you would see your own. Otherwise, how do you explain the fact that in this neighborhood, I get followed by private security? Do you see me? Or do you sometimes see me? Do you value me? Do you see my humanity? Or am I just another calculation to you? Are you hey, man. So for us to get to a point where South Africa can emulate an attempt to decolonize, to get together and move forward as a unit, we first have to get there. And for me, it starts with education. Because Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso started there. When he took power, only like a third of the population could read. Within 3 years, 2/3 of the population could read. Because he had a policy that said each one teach one.
Yes.
If you can read, you are a teacher in that country.
Oh, wow.
If you are a citizen of that country, you are beholden to your countrymen. He took away the privileges of the politicians, where like one person would have a convoy of cars. Like, okay, cool. No, you get one car and you drive it yourself.
And they do this in traffic. The way I want to stand there. The way I want.
Like South Africa has the highest public spending on a per capita basis in the world.
Got that wrong.
In the world, I was made aware of a situation quite recently where a person has a salary of over R1 million, over R1 million per annum, and they never pitch up to work. They have an entire business going on, like they have the entire life going on, but they are a public servant. They are on the payroll. They get over 100,000 rand per month. They never pitch up to work. That's the South Africa. That's the 14% of GDP that's going to public spending. And that's just like a trinket in that. Imagine everywhere I go in South Africa and I see an impressive business, I see something that's like, oh, it's owned by a black person. It's usually the cousin or brother-in-law or friend of a politician.
Yeah.
I spent my 30th birthday last year at a resort in Limpopo. We drove around that place for 5 hours, did not pass the same tree twice, owned by one person who is the cousin of the former premier. Like I won't mention names. But then that's the story we know in South Africa where
I'm not even surprised. I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm like,
there we go,
guys. Like, really, do you have to be so blatant about it?
And that's what we always complain about. Like, we understand that you guys will steal money, but don't do it in our faces. Come on.
And the thing is that culture kind of cultivates an understanding among South Africans, especially the patriotic South Africans that want to do, that want to contribute, that want to build South Africa. They're like, yeah, bro, you're fighting a losing battle. You know, like the top brains that the country has to offer leave.
Gone.
Leave. My best friend introduced me to a guy that was renting a back room in one of his mom's properties. And this dude had a PhD in something, and he was the deputy director of this agency, this public run agency. And his director does not even have a matric, but he's friends with the right people. Does not even have a matric. He is the subordinate of a person that does not even have a matric.
And he has a PhD.
Has a PhD.
And he's living in a back room?
No, he was, when we met, he was on a business trip.
Oh, so he was just Airbnb type of thing.
Yeah. So,
okay. I thought he was,
No. So I'm like, yo. And then this dude was like, that's the reality of South Africa. Like, if you want, imagine now you are doing strategic meetings with a matriculant. Not even a matriculant.
Okay, because... And uzakozela lam when like uyazela, it doesn't interest him.
And the marketplace is such now with this work from home situation where the best talent South Africa has to offer is not even working for South African companies. You know? It's not, and that is one that I see that's going to be a problem for corporate South Africa. That is going to be a problem for corporate South Africa because my career was in a standstill for the first, I would say, 5-6 years, where it was like I studied theater because I was acting supervisor, acting tonton in South African companies. The moment I started working for a non-South African company, within 6 months I was promoted twice.
Exactly. And the
know?
salary at 100 nisha.
And that time, when you're working for South African companies, especially the small ones, oh my fucking hell, the corruption that happens in these companies. I'm like, what do you do again? Oh, okay. What's your experience? Oh, okay. And you are the account manager. Oh, cool. Okay.
That's interesting.
Hey, dude, I'm like, awumuncu.
Bantu baba
But
openly.
Hey, man, doors open, man.
This other company I worked for, they called an Popi. Popi from the 60s. But we need you to manage this market. They are different tiers, products. So this package was usually bought by this type of person, this LSM or whatever it's called. So at the time, the people who were buying this product, the most expensive product, were white people still. So they called an Popi who doesn't even know how to take this company forward in terms of the digital era. But please come and manage the white sort of customers and... Guys, the company was losing money at the time because everything was going to online streaming platforms. And theirs was suffering because it was fucking boring. And the first thing they thought of was to call an Popi. Uzakwenza ntoni? Akantu inshallah mtazawuyazi. He's a retired old white man. He's made his money. Akazu innovate. And now's not the time for him to be innovating. Guys. It was struggling company. Babiza bantu retire.
Yeah, it's like that. That's the thing I'm saying though. Like it's that feedback loop.
Yes.
You know, like you are never in a situation where you're gonna get reality. You know, you are not getting reality. You are just getting what you need to hear to keep you comfortable in this thing, you know, in this situation you are in, you know. Like with these elections that happen, I kept seeing these DA posters on some Save South Africa. I'm like, these motherfuckers probably think South Africa needs more saving now than it did in 94. Like that's the intensity of this message of save South Africa. Motherfucker, South Africa does not need saving. Yeah, it's not great, but what are we being saved from?
Do you think they believe that, or they hoping we will believe that? Because I have a feeling they don't believe anything that they say, but they are hoping we will.
I don't know. Like
I think they
when
know
I was younger,
exactly.
I was a DA supporter in my naivety. Like I was like, oh,
there was an era though. I'm not blaming you. There was an era where
but then they show their true colors, you know. They show their true colors,
and they don't even mean to. Whiteness will always prevail.
For me, I remember when Umusi was the DA leader, and at that time, they're like top dogs. Was very much white, and Umusi is the head.
The only one, yeah.
And I'm looking at that situation, and I don't remember the man's, what's his name? General something. 2-star major general from the apartheid era was part of that
up crop.
You know, I'm like, how
I can't
does a 30-something-year-old become the boss of this, bruh?
He never becomes his boss.
You know, and that's the fault they have. Like, when you're looking at the DA, I think Machi had a great debate on this, and Mustafa was talking about how there's a disconnect
between who's sitting up here and down there.